Well, welcome back to the Majo Podcast, Real, Raw, Unfiltered. If you're not following us yet, follow us. Go hit that follow button right now. What are you doing if you're not? At the Majo Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. If you choose that Apple platform, that's cool too. Spotify, all the ones. Last week we dropped Nobody Taught Us How to Fight Fair. If you haven't listened to that one yet, pause this, go check that out. It's one of those conversations that hits every couples where it counts. Today is at part 2 of a 5-part series on intimacy and sex with our guy Piyush. If you caught part 1, I want her, she wants sleep, then you already know where this is headed. We started by talking about what happens when two people love each other but can't seem to get on the same page when it comes to desire, energy, and connection. This time we're digging a little deeper into what happens when we stop talking about sex and intimacy altogether. When sex becomes the elephant in the room, replaced by little arguments about dishes, routines, and who's carrying the emotional load. This one's about the silence underneath the noise, what it means, where it comes from, and how to start finding your way back to each other. Why do you think sex becomes such a hard topic to talk about, especially for married couples?
That's a loaded question, Derek.
Good way to get started, right?
That's right. Be like, okay, pick a star. Which one of these stars?
Exactly.
It could be so many things, but typically it boils down to attachment and shame, I think.
So speak a little bit more on it.
Well, let's just think about it. If you're a little baby and you have needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you fell and you skid your knee and you're like, it hurts. And your mom or dad is like, no, it doesn't hurt. In that moment, you have to decide, okay, does my own autonomy have any value in this world?
Mm-hmm.
Because I need their attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I quickly learn I can't trust my feelings. There's going to be an evaluation. If I present something, it's presented against something that I need. And I think relationships transform into that, where you need this attachment, this bond, but you also have these personal needs. And it's really hard to navigate that.
That's good. Jason?
I think a lot of it from just kind of a relationship standpoint is it starts to feel like a broken record after a while if it really is something that continues. And so it's a fight that a lot of people just get tired of having. Like, it's just, we're going to talk about this shit again. We're on this again. Or, and it usually comes, the roadblock comes from the person that is the least interested in the situation. They're just like, oh, why are we bringing this up again? Like, I've got this, I've got work, I've got this, all these things that are keeping me, that are, have the roadblock between me and intimacy. I don't feel like, I can't overcome all of these things. So having this fight is just ridiculous. Why are we going to continue to have this? And it just gets to a point where the person that's seeking, the validation from, the intimacy is just like, I don't know, like, I'm tired of having a fight too. Like, I don't want to keep you. Like, if I'm gonna have to beg you for this situation to, to even come to fruition, like, I'm just done. Like, I'm done worrying about it. Like, it just gets old.
Yeah, and I don't think that happens instantly, right?
No.
In that term of relationship, during that life cycle, I really think it boils down to, look, if we're going to be roommates, then I'm not going to do 90% of the chores. I really think that's what it boils down to. It's like, I can equate, if we're going to live together, like anybody else that would be my roommate, I need you to do half the chores. And really, if you think about it, that boils down to a power control dynamic, right? So the household negotiations actually mirror sexual power struggles. So who initiates, who yields, who serves who, that dynamic becomes like a mirror of what's happening in the bedroom or lack.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes perfect sense, because I've actually used in struggles in my, 25 years of being married, there's struggles. There are times that struggle has been set out. I'm like, we're just roommates at this point. Like, what's the point? Like, if we're going to go to bed and not touch each other at all, like zero contact whatsoever, not a kiss goodnight, not a hug goodnight, not nothing. Like, if we can go 24 hours and not even touch each other, like, that's roommate status to me. Like, what's the point? Like, why are we even getting into this? And so, I mean, that brings up a really good point.
Yeah, so interesting, man, how much sit in a room with couples and how much other stuff is actually related to sex and intimacy, right? Like, and how couples just don't talk about it. And even with that, like how awkward they feel bringing it up in the room too. Like just to mention sex and intimacy in the room,
Yeah.
like there's some couples that come in and like they'll be forthright with it and talk about it and bring it up like, hey, we need to have more sex or whatever it might be, or I'm really struggling in the bedroom. But there's a lot of couples that come in that like just speaking it with somebody who deals with relationships and sex and intimacy is so awkward for them. Um, and I was doing a little bit of research on this episode, and I saw something from the Journal of Sex Research in 2021 that said one study found that partners only know about 62% of what their spouse enjoys sexually, and only 26% of what truly turns them on. So, like thinking about couples are guessing almost half the time of what is actually interesting to their partner or what turns their partner on. Like that was astounding to me. Like to actually, I kind of knew it, you know what I'm saying? Just sitting with couples and hearing the conversations and then thinking about, you know, my own relationship as well. But to see that research, like that's crazy. Like they're like couples really aren't talking about it or getting into the conversation. Um, and I think I'm on the I think that I'm trying to think back through my relationship and where it's like the emotional points, the emotional lows. So you thinking about that attachment and that shame, but that emotional lows where the connection is the worst it does affect the bedroom. And then it's even harder because the emotional connection isn't there to have the conversation about the emotional connection and the intimacy and sex.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, it starts off almost like a lie, right? So,
Mm,
oh yeah, I love this. I'm into that. And now, let's say 5 years passes, and you're like, how do I say I never liked it? Right now, you're all
mm-hmm,
in,
mm-hmm,
and I think there's this simple math formula that's like, yeah, I'm not into it, so I'll just abstain.
mm,
The abstaining is easier than to explain myself that I never liked it. You know, if
mm,
we really talk about the 27% that they know
mm-hmm,
and the large amount they don't, well, that large amount is now going to be covered in shame.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
mm,
you think about the, you
mm,
know, the impact of telling somebody that, oh, you know, we're 5 years into this and I never did like that. And then they're like, well, what else did you not tell me?
mm-hmm,
That's a whole nother box. It's a whole nother room of shit you got to unpack. Cause then it's like, oh,
Yeah,
well, if you lied about that or you weren't truthful or upfront about that, what else is there that I do that, you know, then it flashes completely from, you know, what the core issue is to a whole load of other issues. And you got to start talking about shit nobody wanted to talk about. When in
that's right.
reality, you were just trying to get that. You were just trying but I mean, the thing about it that really sucks is, you know, when you talk about the what turns your partner on and things, like when they talk about people that, you know, the different love languages and all those types of things, and people have started calling acts of service like chore play. So it's like
mm,
chore play. Oh, when I see my husband do the dishes or vacuuming the floor, like it really does, like it really gets me going because it makes me think like, oh, he's doing the acts of service. In fact, well, the flip side of that is when you have somebody that's all about the acts of service and still doesn't like you can't bank enough of that for it to
mm-hmm,
pay off, and you're an emotional touch person, like the acts of service shit just turns into, oh, I'm just doing this again. Like I'm doing the dishes for the ninth
Mm,
day in a row. You haven't had to touch a damn thing in here, and I'm still like, there's zero payoff aside from the fact that the dishes are done. Like the house is clean.
mm-hmm,
Like I feel better because the kitchen's clean. However, I don't
mm-hmm.
feel better because my emotional needs aren't being met. But yet you're taking advantage of stacking all the credits in the fucking in the chore play category, and that leads to a different type of resentment because you're just like,
Right.
I'm over here, you know, cleaning this shit from top to bottom, and you're over here like, hey, it looks really great. Now I'm gonna go to bed, and it's like, wait a minute, hold up,
Mm-hmm.
time out. And it just like that resentment that builds can build really quick because you feel like, you know, if you're both working, you both have a full-time job, you're both helping take care of the kids, you're both doing the things, yet you're the one that's being, that's doing going the extra mile by cleaning, doing all these things, hoping that you're adding up, the credits in your bank, just to continue to be like, oh, well, wait a minute. So the other person that doesn't do the rest of the things that you're doing, trying to earn the credits, and you're just like, wait a minute, time out.
Just builds more resentment.
Yeah.
Oh, well, of course, I'm like, hey, I hear you saying this, and so I'm turning towards you to do these things because you say it's your love language, which I'll come back to that in a second. But
you can't say that with such disgust, Derek, because many people believe that's a thing. I understand you don't.
I loathe the love languages, bro. Like, they get on my nerves. Like, it's just, and I think it's good in principle, but I think people get so attached to them. They're like, this is me, and I'm like, no, this is you right now because of your deeper emotional issues from your childhood and your attachment struggles that you have. That's what this is about for you. But sure, go off with your acts of service. Anyway,
I was like, you can't make it your whole personality, but at the same time, like, to say that the shit doesn't exist at all, like.
Sure, I don't know if you see that though. Like, I have couples that have came in and they have made the love language like, man, I am an acts of service person, and so if they're not doing these acts of services, then I'm not feeling loved. And like, they own that, bro. Like, they own it. Peach, I don't know if you've seen that or not.
I have.
Right? Like, and it's just like, man. Anyway, so sorry about that side note rant, but that's just, man, I try to keep a straight face when couples come into the therapy room and they bring up the love languages, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, if you keep the same straight face you just had, you're not doing too good now.
Well, this is outside the room, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
But the connection there, like, this is exactly what happens, right? So, Jason, you read it. You read the room just like it normally is read, which is, we equate feeling appreciated, feeling loved equals sex.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you are a physical touch and that's how you feel it, it's really easy, right? But what we're talking about is, hey, this is how I feel safe. Well, that may not have anything to do with sex or intimacy. It's just in my relationship, when you help out, I feel safe. Mm-hmm. Hey, when you tell me I'm doing a great job, I feel safe. But also, hey, when you grab my ass, I also feel good, right? And that one's the one that doesn't really fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, within that whole, like, umbrella of acts of service and words of affirmation, gifts. The physical touch one, I felt like I had to get slipped in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, right, that's the hard part is I'm explaining 100% my marriage because my wife is an acts of service person. I am a physical touch person. So,
but I challenge that. I bet your wife is also a physical touch because by touch you respond, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I bet if somebody said, "Man, Jason, you crushed it on that, man. Thank you for that." You're like, "Oh, I hate that." No, you're like, "I feel good. That feels good." So I'm with Derek on this one.
I think that's my, and I'll let you get back to what you're saying, Jason. Sorry, but I think that's what it is right there. That people limit themselves to this thing and they don't understand, like, we are all of them. And if this one right now is hitting more, like if I'm more of acts of service right now, then there's something about that that's actually speaking to something deeper. But like, I have never met anybody in my room that's like, yeah, I don't like touch. I just want the acts of service. And then that, then I give.
You met my
Jason,
wife.
Go ahead.
You've met my wife.
I've met your wife.
You've met my wife, motherfucker. She is 100% acts of do for me, and I'll get you back later, 6-7 months from now. Like, no, I legitimately, and it's the wildest shit. Like, I don't like, for me, it is, it sucks because I am like but we can go 24, 48 hours without so much as touching, and it drives me up the wall. But she doesn't bother her bitch. She's like, whatever, bro. Like, don't, like, when she gets home, like, she's in the mental health field. So when she gets home, she doesn't want to be bothered. She wants to decompress. She wants to do what she has to do. And that has nothing to do with me. She wants me in the room because I'm a calming presence. But past that, No, we're not talking. We're not touching. We're not gonna let her do her thing. Like, let her fucking get her day washed off. But that is not like she's been talking all day. She doesn't want to hear it. She's been talked at all day. She doesn't want to hear it. So there's a whole, like, I'm used to it now to a point where I just go find other shit to do. Like, but at the same time, like the resentment is definitely there, because it's very hard to be the person that does all, that does a big share of the things with no reciprocation on that.
Sure. I think that knowing Sarah, and obviously that's my sis. I love her. I think if we can ever get down to Florida and I can get her into private practice, because she's been running herself ragged for years at this point with what she does, and she does so contextually, like she works in community mental health piece with some a very interesting demographic of clients that are really higher risk and really difficult to work with. And she works hours. Plus she was already at LADC. Then she just did another master's program to get her LCSW and going through candidacy for that. So she's just been running herself ragged since she lived here. And so to contextualize that, I think if we could get her out of freaking community mental health and out of working 12 hours a day,
Shit.
I think that
12 is an easy day for her.
Right. I think we could get those other love languages opened up a little bit for you. Because it's an emotional thing, right?
And that's why I say, like, I'm not bitter about the whole situation, because I know how she works. I know what she does. I know what she goes through. So I'm understanding about it. But when I have the ability to vent about it, I'm damn sure going to take it, because that's how I keep from losing my shit. Like, we used to fight about it a lot. We fought about it to the point, at one point, she looked at me and was like, look, if we never have sex again, I'm good. And I was like, well, you're going to need to call up a pinch hitter or something, because what I'm not going to do at like 28 years old is never have sex again. I was like, so this is not going to work. But I mean, and that's the thing. Like, you have to talk about it in ways that, like, people can understand. Like, it's not going to be something like, when those crossroads come, you can't just lock up and go, oh, well, sorry I said anything, I'll just not talk about it anymore. No, you gotta keep going. If it really matters to you, you've got to keep going until you can reach an understanding that that's not okay.
Yeah, which is interesting, because the Gottmans actually have said multiple times that, like, talking about sex is more intimate than actually having sex. That openness about what they want, what they fear, what they need, it creates a closeness than just the act of sex itself, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, Piyush, when you have couples that come in and they say they're not having sex, what are they really saying when they say that?
Well, it's usually loaded. They won't tell me that. We will talk about dishes. We will talk about laundry. We'll talk about all the other things, right? And once they feel some safety, some comfort, then it starts to boil down into either it's not enough, I don't like it, we're disconnected in terms of what our needs are, timing. And so those become like tactical, but we're still not addressing, what the real underlying issue is. Sometimes it's body issues, sometimes it's rejection, right? I mean, one act of rejection that could have just been like, I'm tired, snowballs into like all of a sudden, she doesn't love me anymore. What's happening? That's a real thing.
100% is a real thing.
I have a background in working with kink clients, so I try to normalize that language. And some of my, super religious couples, they're like, we are lights off missionary. And I'm like, cool, that's your kink, right? Like, that's your thing. So it's okay. But really, if you think about it, we're talking about negotiation, consent, open discussion with no judgment. Man, that's amazing. So that's where we start. I start to normalize the language. Hey, you can always say no. So what are you in the mood for? That's what all you should start with. Hey, what are you in the mood for? I'm in the mood for this. Just like if you were picking a restaurant. And that starts this open dialogue that I can say I'm not in the mood for hamburgers, but I would go for pizza. But if you want hamburgers, maybe tomorrow we'll have hamburgers. I'll commit to tomorrow. So that's the language we use, right?
Kind of, yeah, normalize it and make it, yeah, just make it like every other day language.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I always use this car metaphor, right? Like taking the car out for a drive. And what happens is these couples put the keys somewhere. They can't find the keys. And then all of a sudden it's like, we'll just leave the car in the garage. Then we'll make
Mm.
excuses like, well, it's raining. Oh, I think the tires are flat. So you know what? We're just not going to take the car out. We'll ignore we even have a car. And we figure out other ways to get around. And so for me, the biggest step is let's find the keys. Let's just take it out of the driveway. And I use Sensei Focus to like really break that down.
Mm-hmm. That's a good analogy though, for real. How
Most
we
people
find
are so scared to like, oh God, if we get the car, we got to fix it. We got to take it on a road trip. We don't know where we're going. You know what? Let's just get in the car. All we got to do is turn it on. That's it. That's the hardest part. And I can't tell you how many times couples are like, all right, we went driving. We're ready to trade it in and get a new car. I'm like, no, we're not needing to fix anything. We're just going to get used to driving.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just have fun driving.
Yeah. Man, that's yeah. I guess what comes to my mind with that is it's difficult because I think about the times in my relationship when there's been that kind of like that downward of sexual activity or sex and intimacy. Like, I think for me, it's hard to just want to, like, if we're using the metaphor of like just take it out the driveway. Like, there's a part of that for me that feels like that's selfish. Because
Yeah,
again, understanding women and understanding the differences between men and women's biology and understanding, like we talked about last time, like it's difficult for women to orgasm just off a penis, right? Like
that's right.
it's so there's something about that feels selfish about just, hey, let's take it down the driveway. But then it's like it sweeps in with this overwhelming feeling of like, well, then it becomes overwhelming because then I think about, oh, we do got to take it to the highway. We got to take it. We got to drive to Tulsa. Like we got to, and then that's like, man, after a long day of
Yep.
everything and we're finally in bed, it's like, bro, I don't want to kind of drive to Tulsa right now, but I also don't want to just take it out the driveway and be selfish.
Yeah, but those are scripts, right?
Mm,
Those are
Yeah.
those are love scripts that are as old as you are, right?
mm-hmm,
And that script has been said, okay, in this situation, penile, vaginal, male orgasm, sex over, win, right? And there is a huge spectrum of life that is being missed out by people because of that story. And so breaking that story, I think that's where Sensei Focus really helps out, right? Because you're saying, hey, we're not going to focus on orgasm. We are not going to focus on penetration. We're really going to focus on touch, being close, being mindful. And that starts to open the door in more activities than you could ever dream up, right?
mm-hmm. Which I think that's what me and my wife are really well at, if I do say so myself, is like, man, we don't go to bed without a kiss. And it's not just like, now there are nights it's just a peck because we're both just dog tired, but at least we get that peck in. But it's like we get a good kiss in before we go to sleep. Like, she's cuddled up to me and I'm hugging her, and like we're having that touch. We're all tied up like a pretzel in the bed, you know what I'm saying? And so there's that intimacy, that connection that we have every night before going to bed that I think helps keep that alive, right? Like there's these
Absolutely.
other ways where we're connecting emotionally and physically that doesn't just involve sex.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's one of those things that, you get to a point where, she's doing her decompress thing and I'm, off in my own little world and it's just time to go. Like, and, at that point, it's to a point where I kind of know where her head's at. So I'm not going to bother her with anything else. So I just let her do what she's going to do. I could pressure her for it and she would never deny it. But I'm still at this point, I'm just kind of, it gets to a point you're just like, I'm good. Like we can figure it out tomorrow. Like maybe tomorrow, maybe not, maybe whatever. But it's not that, that's not the stuff that I really hold against her, because I just know she's never been but she's never, like, she didn't grow up with the physical touch aspect. So she's just not a physical touch adult. Like that's not her jam. Like I can give her a hug, I can do the things, and she'll hug me, and then she, goes off on her way. But there's no like glomming on her, no holding, no, like a lot of the long time frame, like contact is not her jam.
Mm.
Now, when it comes to time to be intimate, that's different. But when we're aside from that, like, no, she doesn't want any of that. I'm not walking with my arm around her. She doesn't like all that. Like, it's just one of those things that she just didn't grow up that way, and I know that.
Mhm.
And I try to respect it as much as possible, because I did grow up that way. So I know, like, I'm very comfortable with all those things and that type of stuff. And I just am a physical person. But at the same time, like I've had to rectify the fact of what I need for what she needs, and come to a kind of a mutual agreement and understanding, so that I'm not glomming on her, because the rejection from that, when it's time for, when she's met her quota and is like, I can't fucking do it anymore, like, get off me. Like, that's when I get hurt, and the resentment and the
Mm.
hurt start building up. And I don't want that to happen. So I think that's why I've kind of dialed it in over, because I've had a long time of, a lot of years of practice and learning learning her as a person. So there's a lot of times where I'm just like, yeah, I get it. Like, I'm just going to let her do her thing and not worry about it.
Hmm. So how can couples learn to translate those little conflicts of, about the dishes or the schedule or the mess or whatever? How can they learn to translate those and understand when those are actually about something deeper of, whether it be out and feeling unwanted or feeling lonely or missing the other person? Like, how can they learn to decipher what that's about?
Look, sometimes it's just about the dishes.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, um, but oftentimes the question is, is this about the dishes not being cleaned, or about our closeness, right? And so that's the conversation that I think often, when it's like, "Okay, I'm hearing this, I'm hearing this, I'm hearing this. Hey, am I missing something?" Right? And to be able to have that openness, uh, like you said, Derek, when the Gottman saying, talking about it is often more intimate than
Mm-hmm.
the act. This is the same deal, right? So
Mm-hmm.
sure, we could run off, have sex, tick it off the box, and I'm good for the whatever period of time, right?
Right.
Or is there something else? So am I feeling rejected? What else does that remind me of? And am I replaying that through my partner, that hurt, that rejection? Or am I bored and I want to try something, but by asking, that's a shameful thing, right? That's a cultural, you're not allowed to ask for what you want.
Mm.
Or will the person think, oh man, what I'm into, oh, they're going to be like, what are you? Who are you? I never knew who you were, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's
Mm-hmm.
funny that you say that, because it seems like that would be a perfect segue to kind of derail an argument almost. If you really are getting into something about that, and you can stop and say, hey, do we need to talk about something a little deeper? Like, is this really about just the dishes or not? And kind of catch your partner off guard a little bit, and they could be like, oh, wait, well, no, actually, it's not. It's about and you can kind of shift the focus. And at that point, it becomes more of a conversation than it does an argument. If you kind of and you kind of turn the temperature down just
That's
a
right.
little bit by asking that question, and not in a defensive way, but just by saying, hey, I'm kind of noticing that this is a little more ramped up than dishes need to be. Like,
Right.
I don't feel like the dishes need to require as much heat as we've got going on right here. So let's tone it down. Let's see what else we need to focus on. And it does make it that will adjust kind of the mindset on how you're approaching that, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good right there, because I think that's what kind of something you said too, Peach, is like, if the emotional, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, dang, there's a word I'm looking for. Like, if the emotional weight of the argument doesn't match the argument itself, then
That's
it's
right.
probably not about the argument itself, right? Like if we're having a screaming match over dishes, unless it's unless something really bad did happen about the dishes, but usually, if we're having a screaming match over the dishes, like that emotional energy that's coming out about the dishes just doesn't fit the dishes,
That's
right?
right.
Like, and we need to take may need to take a second, take a step back and say, okay, what is this really about? I have couples arguing about, there was one that came up the other day. They were arguing about something on their anniversary, and they came back the next week, and it was like, what are we arguing about this for on our anniversary, right? Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, of all things, this doesn't make sense on our anniversary. And when we broke it down and like really kind of started digging in a little bit, it came back to this theme that had been playing out for them for a while, that they've been struggling to actually try to get through, which is just feeling lonely. Like, they feel lonely within their relationship, and it's hard to talk about that. And because of their schedules and things like that, like it's hard to, at the little bit of time they have together, to sit here and say, like, I'm still feeling really lonely. I miss you and I need you and I want to feel connected and all that. It's, they want to try to maximize those, but then in the moments they have a whole day together, it's like they fight over something that's super small, right? And so taking the temperature, the emotional temperature, I think is what I was looking for. Like, if the emotional temperature is really high given the situation, then maybe taking a step back and say, is this really about this thing we're fighting about? Could be a
That's
helpful
right.
deal, right? Um, and I think Jason, what you're saying, right, is like being willing to, that could, if people are become more aware of that, that can help maybe not avoid those things that now we have to, now it's not even about being lonely. Now we have to repair because we're fighting about the dishes, and I called you a selfish mother effer and said you didn't do anything around the house, and all, now we have a whole other thing we got to repair before we get to the loneliness, because I don't want to hear about you lonely after you just called me a selfish mother effer and, you know what I'm saying, cuss me out over some dishes, right? Like, because I
I'm
didn't load the
selfish because
dishwasher,
I'm
right?
selfish because I'm lonely.
Right, right. Like so I think you're right, Jason. If people can start to kind of take that emotional temperature sooner, they can avoid some of those deeper hurtful conflicts that are over something that shouldn't be deep and hurtful.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and that's kind of the thing, because when you're in that heightened state, you don't take inventory of the feelings that you're feeling, let alone what the other person's feeling. So if I'm upset at you about something that we're really going in about, and you come at, like, that's the thing. Like, if you just called me a selfish motherfucker for not doing the dishes, and it's been 2 weeks and it looks like I've been, letting a dead body decomp in the sink, and you're talking shit to me, like, I don't want to hear you. Oh, I'm lonely. I don't give a shit if you're lonely or not. Look at the sink. Like, what? It smells like death in here. What? Like, and that's the thing. Like, when you're in that heightened state, the care and compassion for the other person and how they feel and what they're even their outlook on the situation doesn't factor in, because you're so upset about what it is about the issue that you have attached all of this, like you said, the emotional weight to.
Mm-hmm.
What the other person feels, thinks, or has even to contribute is of no consequence to you, because all you want to hear them say is my bad, I didn't mean to let it get like this, I'm going to fix it. It's a solution based conversation at that point, because you just want to know how it's going to get better. You don't care about the other person, what they're feeling, or what led them to not do said dishes. Short of a medical emergency, the shit didn't get done. That's what that's what we're focusing on right now. Is you had the opportunity, you didn't do it. We're gonna focus on that. So it's really taking the time to, like, when I was talking about lowering the temperature, you lower the temperature so that everybody's feelings can be taken into account. Everybody's reasonings can be listened to. Everybody, you can kind of deductive reasoning kind of shit, get into exactly why what happened, and then everybody can be heard and felt.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And to tie it back to the first episode in this series, think about this. When we can't talk about desire, we will argue about duty.
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we can't talk about desire, we will argue about duty. And then to tie it into this episode, our domestic harmony does not replace erotic honesty.
Okay. Elaborate a little bit on that.
Right? So
Yeah.
just having harmony in the home, it will not override or replace erotic honesty. That erotic honesty, it will catch up
That's good right there.
because shame will build and build and build, right?
That's
You're
a
being
bar.
erotically dishonest with your partner.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, that's good. That's good. Yeah, because that. Say that one more time. The household
Domestic harmony doesn't replace
doesn't replace
erotic
honesty.
honesty.
Yeah. The shame building on
go
that
ahead.
is important. No, the shame building on that is extremely important because
Yes.
like
So what we'll do is I'll be erotically dishonest to have domestic harmony. And that shit doesn't work.
It does not work. I promise you that it does not. I promise you it does not. Because like what you're talking about, the shame building. Like I just had a conversation with my wife about that the other day. So I've been busting my ass in the gym for like a year. So I had bariatric surgery. I lost 200 pounds, busting my ass in the gym. My body's changing. I'm excited about the things that I am seeing. She doesn't look at it the same way. And so when I'm sitting there and I'm in the mirror and I'm like looking, I'm like checking things and like looking things and like just seeing, just kind of respecting the changes that are happening. And she just kind of giggles and I'm like, what are you laughing at? And she's like, it's just cute. And I'm like, no, there's shit cute about it. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm over here, but like, I'm working hard. Like, you're supposed to like, and she's never been like an oogler anyway. She's never going to be like, damn, you're fine. Damn, you're this. Oh my God, look at this. And she's just not that way. But to me, I'm like, it's always going to be something of me feeling physically inferior of the desire standpoint. Like she doesn't look at me. I'm not like and not that I want to be an object of desire, anything shit like that. It sounds stupid when I say it like that, but
no, it doesn't. It doesn't
but
at
to
all,
have
bro.
her look at me and just be like, damn, like my man is putting in the work. Like, look at him. That's like, I need some of that. Like none of that shit ever happens. And I said something to her the other day about it. Like, and I was kind of joking when I said it, but you know, as we all know, jokes are rooted in some honesty. And I was being kind of honest about it at the same time, but I brought it up in a joking manner. So we didn't fight about it. But it was just, you know, she's like, oh, I think about like that all the time. I'm like, yeah, but you don't ever fucking say it. You can think about it how you want to. But if you don't verbalize that shit, to me, it's never even in your brain. So it's just kind of one of those, it just is one of those things that, you know, it's hard to not build up that kind of complex of thinking that like, no matter what you do, like no matter how much work you put in, no matter what happens, no matter what you do, it's just you're never going to get back what you're asking for. So just do what you're doing for you kind of thing. And that's kind of where I've adjusted kind of my mindset so that it is not such a source of contention with me. Because you know, just like you guys said, I will turn other fights into that shit because it builds up and builds up. And to keep that from happening, I've had to adjust my own mindset on that.
I guess where my brain's going with that is like, how do you get couples to understand like, how do I word that? So what is it? I guess like we have to learn to grow and adjust and adapt to our relationship we're in, right? Like, so in this instance, and I appreciate the openness, Jason, for you know, in this conversation about this, in this moment of like, I really want you to, I need you to at some level because it hits so deep. I need you to acknowledge these things for me. And I do want to be at some level an object of desire, which is absolutely okay, right? Like, I mean, if you're like, I want to be an object of desire to all women everywhere, like there may be a problem at that point, right? But like to be an object of desire to your wife, like I think that's natural and healthy. And so like, and then on the, you know, so on the other side of that, not necessarily being raised where we gave those kind of, you know, compliments and things like that. Like there needs to be an adjustment on both sides where, okay, this isn't something I normally think about, but this person I've committed my life to likes that and needs that. So how can I grow as a person? So I guess I know there's a long-winded I thought there, but hopefully all that's making sense. I guess how
Yeah.
do couples navigate that? Like to learn how to grow themselves, but also maybe with in Jason's case of like what I'm hearing him say is also looking to do things for himself and not for others, right? Which is a deeper thing that's attached to like so that's some growth there. But like how do couples navigate that without feeling pressured or rejected or forced, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think part of it is just asking, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I give a little psycho ed, and you and I, Derek, are very, psychodynamically oriented. And so I explain, like in this exact situation, I had it in my office last week, and I go, look, I understand you don't like saying, oh, wow, I'm really attracted to my husband, right? I said, but I want you to just look at it from a different perspective. When your husband was this little baby, this woman looked at this little baby with like this googly eyes and like couldn't go wrong and intimate and touch and held. And now he's a grown man and there's one woman in his life, and that's you. And he needs you to be not only his best friend, but also the person who kind of gives him a few googly eyes and goes, oh, I'm safe. Because in that moment, as a baby, he was safe, fed, held, comforted, loved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that leaves our nervous system. It is still hardwired
Mm-hmm.
in us. That's why I always say, like, even if touch is not your thing, it's still wired in because we need it to be alive, right? And so I try to just normalize the language of it may just seem like sex, but it's probably a little deeper. And let's explore, what does it mean to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does desire mean? Because the assumption is, oh man, if I accept this, I got to do it 24/7. No,
Mm-hmm.
just for a little window of time, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
fill up the battery, feel good, move on with life, right?
You know
I
how
don't know.
many
How does
times
that hit with you, Jason?
No, I mean it sounds it sounds good because like there's times that like Derek was talking about how with him and Sheena that sometimes when they go to bed it's just a peck, just a kiss, and sometimes they get a little deeper into it. But like my wife has said to me before, like it's been a thing where she's been like, well, I can't just make out with you because you never just stop it at that. Like once that happens, you think the door's open and you're trying to kick it in. And you're
mm,
like, so that's like you've got to figure out like how to dial. You always try to take it too far. And so I've worked on dialing that back some, but at the same
Awesome.
time, it's hard, and it's hard for her to accept that I've dialed it back any because there are times that I really do still get caught up in the situation. But you know, in my mind, I've had to adjust that because like just that the act of that alone to me, that just opening up to that much intimacy to me, it just like the floodgates open as far as I'm concerned. Like the emotion that I get from that, like it like when you're talking about charging
Hmm.
the battery, like it charges a few batteries, like for me, because I'm just a physical like I just like Derek's seen me at events, like we go to events together. He's seen
mhm,
like I don't have, and this sounds kind of weird, but I don't have a shirt or a suit, anything that does not have makeup smear smudge like marks on it because people like it's just one of those things. Like I hug people. I'm a hugger kind of person. Like I just do that. And it's funny to me because that those events are the only time she'll peek her head and be like, she starts getting a little like, fuck, what's going on? Fuck. Like she'll say shit. Like she posts a little, oh, well, you got your little fan club over here, and all these little people, this little fan club wants to take pictures, wants all this fan club, this and that. I'm like, oh, now you care.
mhm,
Now it's a big deal. But when I work at home every day and I'm sitting in the house all day, it's not like nobody gives a shit. But get me out in public and maybe a little bit of a problem. And it makes me laugh because she's not a jealous person because she even said it. She's like, "You're not going anywhere." And I was like, "Well, no, I'm not going anywhere." Like, fuck, like, but it's just funny to me because that's when her interest gets piqued, and I'm just like, "Oh, okay." when I'm at home sitting on my ass working all day. Like nobody cares because nobody can see me. But past that, it's like, oh well, why don't you come stand over here? Because like she even bought me a shirt to go to the gym with that has her like those shit that has pictures of her face all over it and has her name big shit across the middle. And she's like, here's your new gym shirt. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening right now? It's just little shit like that makes me laugh, but it also lets me know that it's in there somewhere. Like that's where I like when I get stuff like that feeds a little bit of that because it's in there without her saying it, without her having to admit or say it or talk about it. Because I know, I mean, evidently it's got to be hard for her to talk about, or she would talk about it, because she is always worried that, because I used to be extremely emotional about it and we would fight, and it would never be just a conversation. It would always be a fight. Because I'm just like, why? And then eventually that's when she was just like, I don't know, and two choices, like you can do what we're doing, or we can never do it again. And I'm just like, it's not going to work. But, there's a ton of things that go into it that I've had to kind of adjust over the years and talk about. So as she's had hormonal imbalances. She can't take, hormones and things like that. She can't do replacement therapy. There's lots of shit that she's tried to do to make it better that just don't work. And so I've had to make those adjustments, and then it's the work, and then a job, and the school, and the going and the being gone, and doing the things. Like there's just a lot of shit, but eventually it just becomes a lot of shit. Like I feel like I'm the one making all these adjustments. And, to her, it's just like, well, fuck, I didn't want to do it anyway. So it doesn't, no big adjustment to me. Like, I don't like, sorry, not this week, maybe next week. Like, try again. Like, it's like a raffle that you just continue to lose. And you're just like, well, fuck, eventually I'm going to quit buying tickets. Like, I don't want to fuck with it. Like if my little bitty window keeps getting nailed shut, like I'm just going to quit trying to open it.
That's when we put it on the calendar.
Oh no, we've tried that too.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. It's interesting piece with what you said of like how often people go to the opposite end of the spectrum with that of like, I have to do this 24/7, where you're talking about, hey, just give a little bit, like just make it more of something on your mind of giving some compliments or appreciation or googly eyes, right? Like it doesn't, but it's so interesting how often partners take that and they're like, so I got, when we're talking about, from the Gamma perspective, one of the principles is showing fondness and admiration, right? Which is kind of what we're talking about. It fits into this. So I got to walk around and tell him thank you for every little thing that he does or that she does. Like I just got to walk around and be like, good job, little boy. Good job.
Yep.
Like,
everything
you got to notice everything, right? And it's like I'm like, no, like that's not what we're saying. But it's so I say that because it's so interesting how often people go from nothing to thinking that like they have to do it all the way, all the time, 24/7, 100%, can't miss a time, or it's going to derail the relationship. And so why would I do it? And it's like, man, that thinking I think is pervasive in our society and a lot of other areas too.
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, if you don't go to the gym, if you've never gone to the gym 7 days a week, you're not going to just go, oh, starting Monday, I'm going 7 days. I'm just going to work out every single day. Like you don't. You work up to it. It's a thing. You do little bits at a time. You make a plan and set it and go. And it can be the same thing in a relationship. It does not have to be all or nothing. Like the all or nothing thinking plagues us in so many areas.
Yeah. Just one change.
Just one change. One change. Yeah. How often are you able to get couples to make those connections to their childhood and how much that affects their relationship and their desire and their needs in their intimate life? How often how difficult do you find that, Piyush?
It takes a little while because I've got to build that rapport, but I use Imago as kind of the framework to really have the discussion and the dialogue of, oh, wait a minute. This reminded me of when I was a kid and I was shamed for, wanting this or doing that or experimenting there. Get in line. You're not allowed to have that. How do we break those bonds? And really what we're allowing is each partner to just see them as a whole person and not this caricature that they have in their minds created, right? So in a situation where it's like, oh my God, you're just a sex fiend. You're always on me. I'm like, wow, always. It's a pretty powerful word, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and to me, that's like a little kid showing up into the room that's saying this language like, you never,
Mm-hmm.
we always. Oh wow, that's what a little kid would say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what's really coming up for you? And oftentimes it's a previously really negative experience, and they're starting to see this pattern and they've jumped ahead. Much like what you said, Jason. Hey, we start off with a kiss, but my wife has figured out long kisses equal sex, and she's got a big day tomorrow, so I'm going to stop it. Well, I think the same thing happens in couples. They start to see a tiny pattern. It reminds them of a previous relation or, parent or sibling, and they write the rest of the story without any of the facts.
Mm.
And here we are, right? Trying
Yep.
to navigate that, but it's showing up as we're not having sex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, the subconscious is wild because people don't even, and that's not even conscious thought, right? Like they're like, oh, this is reminds me of when this happened back in my childhood. Like it's just subconscious and and then that's why I love what I do, man.
Well,
I
it's
love
it's
everything
just,
about what
it's
I do.
just the small triggers that happen, and people don't realize like how small the trigger can be, and it sets off a chain reaction because you're like, oh, well, if this happens, this is going to happen, and this and this and this and this. When you don't have the data to back any of that up, you have the data from what happened previously, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't automatically say, well, if this happens, then these things are going to happen right now today. It's not the same. But
Mm-hmm.
in our minds, like, we go for that, fight or flight, the safety area. And that's what we're like, well, I know before this is what happened. And to make myself safe, this is what I did. So I'm just going to continue to do that in
Mm-hmm.
every single situation that mimics that other situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And from a intersubjective systems theory perspective, that's organizing principles, right? They're pre-reflective, they're subconscious, so we just view the world through them without recognizing it, and it's in order to keep ourselves safe. And so this thing reminds me of this, so I'm going to act based on this thing because of my previous experience, because it's about safety. And people just don't realize that they're there, but they do build that story. I talk about that a lot of times. Like you're building a story. Like, but do you know? Well, it's happened in the past. Okay, that's cool. I understand why the story is being built, but how do you know it's going to happen again?
Right.
Unless you
That's
ask
right.
the question, unless you talk about it, unless you say what you're feeling in the moment and let them. And if they do that again, okay, now we have another conversation to talk about and work through and process, right? Of what that made you feel like. But the story building, and it's understandable, but the story building gets folks all the time.
Sure.
Um, so with there being strong evidence that sexual satisfaction and relationship satisfaction go hand in hand, right? And it's not about frequency, right? It's not about frequency. It's about quality and connection. Those matter the most, right? But with sexual satisfaction and relationship satisfaction going hand in hand, how do you get a couple that hasn't talked about it, that they have lost that connection, that emotional connection, the sexual connection? I know you talked about the car earlier, but like, how do you get them? Because I mean, we can talk about the car, but how do you help them actually take that step? Does that make sense? Like taking it and putting it into
Mm-hmm.
action of just finding the keys and taking it to the driveway. Like that's cool to say, and it's a great metaphor. I like it. But sometimes I find couples like have that barrier to actually putting it into action.
Yeah. It's cool to
Yeah,
talk about in the office, but how do you get it from the office to the bed?
Right, right.
absolutely. So I know, Derek, you're going to get sick of me saying sensate focus all the
No,
time,
you're
but
good. You're
I
good.
go back to it because it's exposure therapy,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, right?
Right,
So,
right.
it starts off real simple. Once they're at a point where they're like, okay, there's no more hurts that we've not shared, we've done some of that work. I tell the couples, the first thing in your relationship that's going to disappear is sex. And the last thing that comes back is sex.
Mm.
And so we've got to do this middle part journey. And once we do that, it'll come back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that middle part, all we're doing is we're working through shame, we're working through parental issues, um, fantasies that they've had that are, oh God, we have kids and sick parents and life is happening. So that wasn't in their fantasy of what life would look like, right? So we got to deal
Mhm.
with reality. All
Right.
right. So now let's fast forward. We're ready to get started. I will use the first exercise of sensate focus, which is you're going to touch each other, clothes on or off, your choice, no genitals. We're only going to focus on 3 things: temperature, pressure, texture. That's
Mm.
it. And 5 minutes. So here's what I get back. Oh, do I set a timer? No. Just whatever 5 minutes feels like, right?
Right.
And then you're going to switch and you're going to make it not about sex. But let's say, husband, I'd like you to initiate. Great. They'll come back the next week. I don't bring it up. And I wait for them to say, hey, we did our homework or we didn't. But
Mhm.
oftentimes they won't bring it up.
Mhm.
And I'll say, so how was your time together? What time? What are you talking about? What
Mhm.
homework? I get all that, right?
Mhm.
And it's because of, in that instance, rejection.
Mm.
I'm so afraid she won't do it. I'm just not even going to, bring it
Yeah.
up. I'll just ignore it. All right. So then we got to work through that. What does rejection mean? Okay. When did you feel it? How do we have consent and reschedule if we need to? All right. Now we get through that. Next week comes in. Hey, I did my homework. Yeah, A plus. Okay. Hey, wife, your turn. You initiate this week. They'll come in and go, what homework?
Mhm.
Starts all over
And
again.
what are we talking about? Oh, well, I was afraid body issues. What if he's not attracted? This has nothing to. So really what we're talking about is desensitizing, relearning, and figuring out that all this shit that we were taught, these are just stories that are holding people back.
Mhm. Yeah. Those deeper emotional wounds and hurts and things that are in there for sure.
Yeah.
Still
We
playing a
quit
part.
playing. I don't
Mhm.
know what happened. Maybe it was like 5th grade,
Mhm.
6th grade, but the playground ended and it's like no more playing anymore.
Mhm.
And as couples, we got to bring back play.
Mhm. Might be a new modality, play therapy for couples.
That's right.
Listen, you probably make millions off that shit. I bet.
Oh man,
Figure out.
there's a whole community that already does that, right? They have
Mm,
figured it out.
mm.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So in that exposure, it's not only uncovering these deeper underlying things, but it's also in that you're also rebuilding everything else around sex
That's right.
first. So the emotional, physical,
Yep.
intellectual, spiritual at some level, right? Like those different
Yeah.
parts of connection we're rebuilding in that exposure because we're
That's right.
uncovering these things.
Curiosity.
Curiosity, we're uncovering these things and then having conversations and what you were talking about earlier, the Gottmans, right? Conversations around it is more intimate than the act itself. And so you're building all these, you're reconnecting all these other areas that then lead into the sexual reconnection.
That's right.
Mm. Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
good. That's
And
good.
I try to tell my couples, good sex is not about technique. Because I'll tell you the scariest thing about taking that car for a drive is, man, what if I don't know how to drive? I forgot how to drive. Right.
Mm.
So that's that
Right.
performance
Mm-hmm.
anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
What if I, all the what ifs, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, man, has nothing to do with technique. You just got to
Mm.
start it. And however you drive, that's how you drive. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not about technique, it's about emotional truth.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, and people often forget, like when you say we stop playing and we stop thinking about those things, we also stop exploring. Like we think we know our partner's body, but that shit changes. Like stuff that used to get us there doesn't get us there anymore. Things that we used to think about, we don't think about that stuff anymore. So taking the time to just explore your partner's body and react to what they react to. Like if that's I mean, a lot of times when you talk about the percentage of people that don't know their partner and what actually gets them going or keeps them going is just be reactive to what you're getting back. Like she's gonna give you feedback. And when she does, that's where you go. Like that's the kind of the path you carve.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times we get to a point where we don't even want to explore our own body that way. So, making that leap to somebody else, or especially like you're talking about, if the people have body issues or, whatever else, like if they're really concerned about their physical appearance, they're not going to feel comfortable having somebody explore them like that either. But it really makes the conversation even more important to sit back and say, hey, this is what I want to do. Like, I understand how you see you, but this is how I see you. If you
Mm-hmm.
could put yourself in my body and see yourself through my eyes, this is what you would see. Now, you're not going to change somebody's 30 years of negative self-talk by saying, well, I look at you, I see this. But you can help kind of lessen the blow and kind of soften the barrier a little bit by saying, this is what I see when I look at you. Like, I understand you feel this way, or we've had kids, you've given birth to kids, you've done this, your body's changed, my body's changed. Like, things are changed. Like, this happens as we get older. But what I need you to know is what I still see is this. And what I want to do is take time to explore this and get to know this and relearn this in this way. And I think when you attach what it's for, like you attach the purpose to it and say, I'm trying to relearn you as a person, as an entity, as my wife, as my lover, as my all these things, it makes it different than just, I want to touch your butt. I want to touch you here. I want to do this. I'm trying to grab this. I'm trying to do this. Like, it
That's right.
makes it puts more, it puts more emphasis on why you're doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just because you're trying to get to the end goal of, orgasm or, penetration or whatever else it is. It's like, even if you set the goal and say, we're not even going to have sex tonight, but I want to take this time to explore your body so that I can better learn what helps you. Like, in my situation with my wife, like, I never ever orgasm first, ever. I make sure she has at least one, most of the time two, before I even attempt to do what I need to do for me. I just, because I want to make sure that happens. I'm going to make sure it happens every single time, regardless, because I don't ever want to get to a point where it's a waste of time for her, because that's when it shuts down completely.
Mhm.
And I just, it takes time and trust and learning your partner to understand like what that looks like. So having those conversations is extremely important to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is the good thing about Sensate Focus, right? Is it explores all that to an extent and builds to the actual sex, right? It takes it away from just orgasm and sex itself, and allows for that exploration of the body.
That's right.
Um,
It removes the kind of goal-oriented
mhm. Right,
ideas and behaviors that we have.
right, right. And ultimately at the root of all this, like it's about rebuilding emotional safety and intimacy,
That's right.
so that it can all flow, the sex can flow again, right? Like that it can all be wrapped up in that. Well, before we close out the show for tonight, I actually did get a question from one of our listeners
Nice.
that they were talking to me, and they wanted me to actually ask you, Peace. I'm gonna read the message to you, but they wanted your thoughts and ideas for this for them. So, and this is actually a female listener too, so which I thought was super dope. So this is what she sent me. So I have a question about what to do when medication interferes with your libido. I take antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds, and every one I've tried kills my desire. When I'm off the meds, I'm anxious and emotional. When I'm on them, I feel numb and uninterested. My doctor and therapist keep telling me to just schedule it, but when I'm medicated, I have no motivation at all. It's not fair to me or my husband, and I don't know how to fix it. So
That
what would you?
is half of America right there. So
Mm-hmm.
she's not alone.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of men and women are in this situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would be curious about, what does pleasure feel like? Are we looking at goal-oriented sex?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there other stuff on the plate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would encourage this kind of dialogue of, what are you in the mood for? And can I commit to that? So if she wants to, you know, make her husband kind of the primary of tonight, I'm down for that. Or, I've always wanted to explore erotic massage. What would that look like? And that might feel great because my libido may not be high, but that, full body massage may feel great. And then what would you like? So I think it's just opening up the dialogue and breaking the story that, you got to, like we talked about last time, you got to be on all the time. That's not true. It's not real. We're all living lives. We're all trying to make it through the day, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would just let her know, don't change your meds, right? It's important to feel good. It's important to be yourself. But at the same time, maybe we explore the stories you've been told about sex and intimacy are old stories. I've got a great book. This one is awesome. I share this with a lot of clients.
Sex Hacks.
It's called Sex Hacks. And it's great. It's great education for kids I call them kids. Anybody younger than me is a kid.
Yeah.
You know how it is. It's a great way to get a new education on sex.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean so I actually looked up on this too, and it says that the sexual side effects can be caused by roughly 30 to 60% of all people who take SSRIs and SNRIs. Like that's a huge, and how many people take that in our society, those medications, like that's a huge number of people that are affected by this, right? And I think you hit it on the nail on the head of, like, again, exploring what does sex mean, what does all this mean to you, like trying to uncover those stories and looking for other ways to get the connection and just taking it back to a simple conversation. But she will be watching. She says that she has watched every episode, and is actually a family ritual now on Wednesdays when we release the show that her and her family will sit down and watch the show on YouTube now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that's pretty dope. So
that is.
Yeah, Jason, did you have thoughts or anything about that?
It's hard. It's definitely not an easy situation to approach whatsoever, because like I explained, like my wife is one that has, hormonal issues due to having, problems with PCOS and having to have a full hysterectomy after my son was born. And hers was the same way. Her libido was gone, like legitimately gone. That's why when she approached and said like she could never do it again and it wouldn't matter to her. It was a crushing blow, not only to me, but to her as well, because she was a sexual person before that happened. And to have that, pulled away in that way was very hard for her to understand and also to cope with. So I would definitely say that while it seems like it's hard, it does seem like it's something that's insurmountable. It's not. It's going to be something that you do have to probably put a little bit more effort into than you're used to. You saying the desire, those things, the motivation is just not there. And sometimes it's not going to be, it may not be there, but sometimes, to be able to continue the way that you want to keep you and your partner happy, there's going to be times that just, even without the motivation, let it, like P said, having a conversation, figuring out what can be on the menu that's acceptable to you and to your partner. Just showing, your partner and yourself that you're open to those changes and those things, making some effort is really it's going to help you and your partner as well. Because once you open kind of your mindset to that, it's kind of the consistency breeds the motivation kind of thing. Like, as long as you're consistently thinking about it, talking about it, doing the things and having those conversations, eventually it'll fall into some type of rhythm where those types of things can happen and the joy will come back. It just takes a little bit of time.
Yeah. Patience, time, compassion, empathy,
understanding from both sides.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's important too. I think it's really important to dig into those stories, like you've been talking about, Peace, like digging into those stories. And if you're with a provider who may only be giving you strategies, or at some level may not even be listening, because, oh, it's normal, you just got to deal with it. Like, find a provider or a therapist that will help you explore the underlying dynamics that may be at play, and give you resources like what Peach just talked about with the sex hacks, and looking at ways of breaking it down and simplifying it outside of just sex. But how do we talk about and be intimate in other ways than just sex? But it takes exploration of those stories, those organizing principles. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting, and I'll say this before we close, that I want people to hold on to with this, is that things that we're fighting about are rarely about what we think it is, right? Like, we catch ourselves fighting about the dishes or the linens or something else, but it's rarely about what we think it is, especially if the emotional temperature is high. It's about what's underneath. And so I'm sure the next three parts that we do, there'll be some of that's replaying in there. But just with these first two, it just reemphasizes why I like psychodynamic therapy so much, because there's so much underneath just what's on the surface level of things. We're arguing about the dishwasher, how to load the dishwasher, which is an interesting one, right? How do you load the dishwasher? There's so much to it. But just take time for you in your relationships, and take a step back and say, what is this really about? And I think if people will do that and find out what's underneath, man, there can be a lot of healing and reconnection in that. Any final thoughts on the conversation or anything before we get done for tonight?
No, I mean, it's a much needed topic, right? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just want the listeners to really think about, right, the domestic harmony does not replace erotic honesty. Kind of to chew on that. Maybe if they have a question, we'll tackle them next time. I love that.
Yeah. And that
Yes.
is a bar, bro. That is a bar. But yeah, send in
It
the
is.
questions. It is a bar. Yeah. Jason, any final thoughts?
No, just have the conversation. Like, just start with the conversation. Don't put so much weight on it that you don't even want to talk about it. Just sit down and have an honest conversation, and that will in itself lower the temperature on future conversations. So just knowing that you're willing and open and honest, and just letting your partner know what it is you want to even talk about. Maybe you don't even have the conversation that day. Just be like, listen, here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I want to talk about. When's a good time? Do you feel emotionally open that we can discuss this further? And by them thinking about that in that way, so you're not bombarding them or attack, they don't feel attacked, they don't feel bombarded, they don't feel like, well, you've been holding all this back and now you're just going to dump it on me. I don't want to trauma dump right now after I've had a fucking 12-hour day, and we still got to figure out what's for dinner, and now you want to talk about how I don't hug you enough. Like, that's the kind of, like, you just have to sit back and think about it in framing in such a way that your partner doesn't feel that pressure to have that conversation right this second. And sometimes they may be open to it, and they may be like, we'll talk about that right now. Like, what do you want to talk about? And if they do, that's awesome. If not, schedule it like you would a sexual encounter. Like, if you have to put a sexual encounter on the schedule, why not schedule a conversation the same way? Like, if you guys say, hey, I'm going to come home early this time, we can have dinner pre-figured out, and then we'll sit down and talk about whatever you want to talk about. We'll get the kids to, out of the bath and in the bed, and then we'll sit down and have a conversation. But it also gives them the benefit of having time to think about what it is you want to talk about, so that they don't just walk into something blindsided. Because if I've been holding back emotions on something for 2 weeks, and you don't even have a clue what I'm upset about, and I'm just like, whoa, and I just unload all this shit on you, you're like, fucking, I didn't even know it was a problem. And now all of a sudden it's, you're a DEFCON 5, and I'm over here like, fuck, I thought things were good.
Right.
And then they've got to come up with all this, they're on the fly trying to come up with some shit. And it puts you in a defensive stance that you didn't deserve to be put in the first place, because I had all my arguments and ammo ready. I gave you zero warning, and now I'm just guns blazing. I come in like, this is what's happening. Like, and at that point it is an attack. And if you really want a resolution, that's not a good way to start off a conversation.
Yeah. Well, that's good, bro. That's good. Well, if this conversation hit home, share it with somebody who needs to hear it, or maybe with your spouse as a way to start a real conversation. Peace. I look forward to the next convo.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. My wife was actually she watched the last episode with you and she really enjoyed it, and she was like, what, part two's not next week, what? so it's I appreciate you being on, man. This is I love our conversations, and so far again we got 3 more, so stay tuned for part 3, 4, and 5. Follow at the Majo podcast, the Majo podcast, the MAJO podcast on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and everywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, wherever you tune in. Until next time, stay real, stay raw, and keep doing the work that brings you closer. See y'all next week.
Take it easy. Yeah.